Sorry if at any point you do hear the baby crying in the background. A little fussy tonight, but today I just wanted to say thank you so much for clicking on my video, and thank you if you did come by for my live video today. It was a lot of fun. We got to break down a lot of stuff, and you guys had some great questions that I think I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight. Um, but first of all, we just got to say that we're going to get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVIDIA, and AMD. We have a big data drop tomorrow with the PPI, and is that going to follow the CPI's kind of route there and go up on us? We'll have to see. Let's get into it. The other day, we did see the CPI tick up a little bit above what we were expecting. We did have some Fed speakers come out and say that some inflation ticking up is a good thing, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But what can we read into that? That was kind of one of the questions we got during the live video. Does CPI affect PPI, and can it kind of say if the PPI is going to come in a little higher? At this point, you would most likely say yes, it definitely can, but they are kind of dependent, right? They're independent from each other. So that would just tell me, hey, the PPI could come in a little bit hotter, but since we do have those Fed speakers that are saying that higher numbers could be good news at this point, they're pretty much telling people that bad news is good news and good news is good news. And so we really have to just look at the data. PPI going up would not be a good thing for the market, but will people see it that way? And so it's going to be really important tomorrow to pay attention to the actual price action after the data is released. Now, if I do scroll down, I just wanted you to be aware next Wednesday, February 21st, we do have that FOMC minutes, and I think this will be more important than PPI tomorrow, but you never know. So it's really important to pay attention to that price action. All right, jumping right back into the SPY here for our first ETF of the day. We really were talking about this 30-minute here and how we were starting to kind of see this slight move upward. We didn't get that handle, so we were going to be a little worried. But the good part here is if you're here for the live video, we stated how there is consolidation moving sideways right here. So it really looks like we're going to go fill this gap. And that's exactly what happened. We ended up filling the gap a couple hours later. So, but overall, just thank you for tuning into that. Now, the thing that we were mentioning in our video was once we get into positive territory, we can start to see more positivity. Let's see, we get into positive territory right around here, and we see that more positivity. If you wanted this to break down, we really needed this to cross back down into negative territory, solidify that we're in a negative trend. Now with PPI, that can still happen for the bears here, okay? We're still up here in this danger zone. We're right at it. So we're maybe even a touch above it, and we're consolidating sideways a little bit before we actually go test the high. So that could be good news for the bulls, but the bear side, you want this to roll over and get back down into negative territory. You want this negative trend to continue. Am I leaning towards that at this point? Not necessarily, and we're going to talk about that a lot when we get to Apple. But the big news here is, we're outside of these monthly expected moves, and we could land back within them. And I do believe that is going to happen when all is said and done. But do we still get a reaction up and make a new all-time high? And then we get some news from the FOMC minutes that they're not cutting rates, or maybe they are cutting rates for a different reason that could actually cause us to come down. During my live video, we also mentioned if we start to see even more positivity, pull up the 2-hour, because we most likely will see a divergence up here if we start to see even more positivity. We got that crossing in positive territory. So once we got this cross in positive territory, we know, hey, there's a good chance that we're going to get some positivity here. So we're at least most likely going to test this high if that PPI doesn't, disrupt us before market open. But what we want to pay attention to here is this divergence setting up before we actually get that FOMC minutes, okay? So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to. We have that crossing in positive territory. We are not down here in the negative area yet. So that is what we need to pay attention to. And I'm going to be talking about tomorrow if we're able to make some kind of divergence in the next few trading days. Qs are kind of sitting a little bit, I would even say, better with this move. I really thought this pullback here going up would actually be better, but we weren't able to fill this gap just yet. So that could be in the near future, right? This could be some kind of small flagging, and we could see that move upward. Now, we did see that resistance come in at that monthly expected move. We saw that resistance come in, then we got the bad news with the CPI. So will that happen again? Could we get some kind of gap higher testing this and then see the sellers clap back one more time? That's definitely possible. Getting this really close to negative territory still, not like the SPY. The SPY was actually a little bit more up into positive territory. The Q's hanging right by the center here. So if this wants to roll over, we could go into this negative territory pretty quick, which means we most likely will come and test this low as long as we break through some key stuff here. If we start to break through most likely this trend again, then we're most likely going to see us come and test this low. So we really need to pay attention to that going into tomorrow, but a lot of that is going to ride on the PPI. The other part here for the bulls that we can mention is we're actually seeing that crossing on a 2-hour chart, right? We have this single divergence up here. We got a little bit of a sell-off. Now we're getting another move up. We're getting that crossing. So if we do see that strength, we're going to be looking out for a divergence. If we get a divergence outside of a 2-hour divergence outside of the monthly expected move, that is a very good sign that there is some weakness in momentum and that we could see that turn around pretty quick. So I do believe something is coming around the corner. All we have to do is go look at those rates and see how they're higher, but the market's higher. We see how the dollar's higher, but the market's higher. Everything is a little bit ass backwards right now. And so we need to maybe see some more positivity before we actually see a more significant drop and continue this type of behavior. Apple is one of the things I really wanted to talk about, and it's kind of why I'm leaning towards the bull side, at least from the technical perspective. We do have a divergence here. We have a 2-hour divergence, okay? We do have some kind of, descending triangle at this point, so we need to pay attention to it, okay? We have to pay attention when any stock really has some kind of divergence, especially a 2-hour. So this 2-hour divergence, it's actually a little bit up here. This one's a little bit up, and then we have these mini divergences in here on the RSI as well. So we have it at the same time. If we do see some positivity, I think I saw the post market, we actually were seeing this start to trail up already. Still going to matter with PPI, okay? So really wait for this to confirm, even wait for it to get into positive territory. By the time it gets into positive territory, it most likely will be breaking out of this wedge, and you'll have another reason to possibly take a closer look at Apple. So the thing about this is this daily has been down for quite some time. So if we get a bunch of positivity out of Apple, we actually could see the market go up for a few days. We could see it go up for a week or so. So we want to pay attention to this. It's right by positive territory. We can really see some positivity out of Apple. Maybe paying attention to this like little trend line here between these highs, see if we're able to break through that resistance to head higher, or if we're going to get another lower high and then start to really crack down below this base. Apple is going to be something you really want to pay attention to tomorrow, and the PPI data. Now, Amazon, we were talking about a head and shoulders popping up, and it really has popped up. So this was a good trade that we caught, and then we noticed it's actually pulling down. Now we're creating some kind of head and shoulders using that gap support as the base here. So we want to pay attention to this. We were able to get into negative territory, but right now, you notice this right here, we have a double bottom. We do have that divergence. It is very, very significant here on the 30-minute RSI and significant on the MACD at the same time. We didn't fill this gap, so we could see some positivity. So I do believe with these divergences on Amazon and on Apple, if we do get some positive reaction with the PPI, we actually can see some extreme positivity from a lot of these individual stocks. Fair side to this is if we actually see this play out, okay? If we get PPI to drop down on the market, we break below this base, we get some kind of retest. That would be overall how I see this breaking down. And really it just means, hey, this is going to break down like this, maybe get a reaction and then get us back in this big channel. So this big channel here, we actually reacted to the upside. It would be kind of a bearish scenario for us to get back into it because we'll notice that the daily pretty overextended, okay? This is very overextended and it looks like it wants to cross. So once we do get some kind of bad news, this actually can break down pretty quickly. Tesla, we can look at the daily and we were overall stating how there's 2-hour divergence down here. It's a great trade to take. You got about a 12-point move there. We got that pullback and now we're getting that little ABC pattern. So could we see more positivity? The short answer to this is yes. We could come up and fill this gap up here, come up into this important area here. It's been important for a long time. We had moments where we gapped above it, which tells us it's important. We had moments where we couldn't break below it, used it as support to head higher. And then we really tried to hang out into it, but then that earnings gave us the bad news. So it's an important zone. I'd really be paying attention to here because if we see too much positivity and we get to that Bollinger Band and maybe we do get some kind of gap up in here and then people kind of switch the script on the PPI, we can see that go down. Not necessarily what I'm leaning towards at this point. I really think this might extend all the way into the FOMC minutes, just so you know. But this is a very, very good trade. We even notice on the RSI, we did have these divergences down here to kind of give us a tip on the daily. So we want to pay attention to that. Now I'm going to bring up a 30-minute, and you'll just notice we haven't had any kind of divergences. We're up there in positive territory. So if we do see pullback or consolidation, I think how we were talking about this was it's very important to break through this area right here, right between these highs. We broke through it. We could get some kind of retest before we want to head higher. So I really think Tesla looks pretty dang positive at this point. Will it last? That is the question. It might last all the way up into the FOMC minutes next week. NVIDIA on the 30-minute, we've really just been hanging out, getting that consolidation, getting really tight in here. So we're expecting a big move right before we get some data tomorrow. So that's going to be very important to pay attention to. NVIDIA is going to be pretty interesting because if we decide to go up, that makes sense because we're in positive territory, right? We're still in positive territory. We can curl up on this 30 minutes, see another push, maybe even go as high as 760 before the day is over tomorrow. And the other side is we're really close to negative territory. So even though we're in positive, if we do get some bad news, we can start that negative trend pretty quick. So this is going to be something to really pay attention to. Maybe we actually, if we want to break down, I would really say upside 760 is what I'm paying attention to. The downside, I'm expecting maybe some kind of big drop down into this area, this 666, and then we get some kind of bounce, maybe setting up some kind of head and shoulders. This is really what I'm paying attention to on NVIDIA. It's still a moment in time where it's like NVIDIA could go a little bit higher, but it could go a lot lower. AMD, weirdly enough, creating a little mini head and shoulders here to tell us it might want to head down, but it is still in positive territory. We were talking about if it broke to the upside, that might be a good signal. See if this is a trap. If the PPI comes out pretty bad, then we could see this go the other way pretty quick. But if it's red as good for the market, this could just be your retest, and we're actually going to see this start to extend higher. We're not overbought. We're in positive territory. We have seen AMD go ballistic before, and it kind of looks similar to, it's just bigger, right? But it looks similar to what NVIDIA is doing. We're still pretty tight in here. We're waiting for a really big move, in my opinion. Now, just a few things. I know I'm saying that we could be bullish for a few days here, maybe even going into the end of next week, but we need to pay attention to a few things. This dollar, we talked about it live, the dollar's going up like this and the market's going up like this, and they're negatively correlated. So one of these is wrong. Usually if the dollar's going up like this, you want to see the market coming down. So the fact that it's holding up means if the dollar keeps going up, we could be getting a rug pull. And I just want you to be aware of that. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the VIX. We're seeing that drop off again. Okay, so how we talked about this on the live channel was mainly just looking at the 2-hour here. We're still remaining in positive territory. Okay, we're still remaining up there in positive territory. Sure, by next Wednesday, if we see that positivity come in before FOMC minutes, I really think we have a good chance of filling this gap and then seeing that base out again around this same level. Now, if we wanted to break down a little bit further, we could come to the bottom of that range. So we're still paying attention to it. I'd pay attention to the gap, then pay attention to the range, then pay attention to 1212 where volatility likes to spike. But the main thing we can look at here is the MACD. If this isn't able to get into deep negative territory and we see that just kind of come down a little bit and then turn back up, then we could probably guess that, we're actually going to see volatility spike again because we're in positive territory. We got the crossing of the MACD. We see stocks with a bunch of divergences. So there is a good probability that we're going to see volatility spike once more, especially with something like FOMC minutes. This is another one similar to the dollar, right? It looks very similar. We see this going up like this, and usually that would make the market sell off pretty good, right? We'd see a lot of pain in the tech stock, kind of like what Apple's doing. Really, the market should be doing what Apple's doing when the yields are moving up like this, but it's not. And now it's cool. It almost came up and hit our target of 4.362. That's great, but the market is not reacting correctly to this, and maybe that's due to a lot of people saying inflation going up is actually a good thing and might mean that what we're doing is working, which just doesn't make sense to me. But the big thing you need to pay attention to is the smart money, dumb money. Okay, we talked about this yesterday. Smart money selling off. Dumb money, we're still up here. So we need to pay attention to that. There's a big difference, and normally if there is some slight difference. If the market's like this and TLT is holding sideways before some news, then we'd say, hey, there's a chance TLT is wrong and we can catch up. But in this case, we actually see, TLT is holding at way lower levels while the market's still testing that all-time high pretty much. So that is a big difference, and usually that actually means that the market is wrong. But does that mean that the overall market is wrong as of tomorrow? I wouldn't necessarily think so. We really have to see what happens with the PPI, but I do think that this will very much so be affected by that FOMC minutes next week. The main takeaway here is, yes, we see some signals that could take us a little bit higher. We see Apple that has some divergence that could lead to a daily crossing. We could see some positivity out of a lot of stocks. We actually could see more positivity out of a bunch of other things. But the thing is up here is we're seeing some of those signals, like the dollar being up while the market is going up, like the TLT being down while the market is still going up. Those are signals you have to pay attention to, especially before big data. So let's pay attention to PPI. And if that, we'll take that as it is. And then next week, we really need to pay attention to FOMC minutes. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I mean, we had some people join the Patreon today. It seems like you guys really like the live videos, so I will try to do more of those. For sure on Thursdays, those will be happening. Just so you do know, Thursdays, those will be happening. And then we'll update you guys from there. But right now, I just wish you guys all the luck in the world trading on this Friday with that big PPI data drop, and I hope you have a good night.